starting shortly, and we'll start with some quick introductions. Sonia will be leading most of the meeting, and we'll start with a couple of folks from Lamoille County who have experiences with childcare in a variety of different contexts. We'll be hearing from parents, business owners, and from educators about kind of what they're seeing. We'll go to Drake for a policy update, just kind of share where we're at and what we kind of see in terms of going forward. We're going to hear from Dan briefly, just sort of about their legislative agenda, that sort of thing. And then we'll move towards a brief kind of Q&A. So if there are any questions, we can address those at that point. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. At Let's Grow Kids, we've been working on action teams. So meeting roughly once every other month or so to talk through kind of childcare. And specifically, we really wanted to make space to have a conversation with some of the reps. And this is really our time to do that. Hopefully over the course of this hour and a half, we'll really get a better sense of some of the lived experience from some of the folks who I mentioned before, some of those speakers, and then we will segue into that Q&A and should be good to go.
Thank you very much, Noah, for just giving the logistics and whatnot of this evening. I appreciate that. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Sonia Raymond, and I am going to be the facilitator for this evening. And I own Apple Tree Learning Centers in Stowe, and I am also on the leadership team of the Lamoille Building Bright Futures Council. I also want to just thank Let's Grow Kids and the Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance for their really dedicated, committed coordination for this evening to help us out. We really appreciate it. It's hard to do it without our partners, so we really appreciate that. I think, Noah, you went through what the sort of agenda for this evening would be. Great, thank you. I just want to say thanks for all the hard work of childcare advocates across the state, including everyone here at this meeting has been part of that journey. We've made significant strides towards sustainable childcare systems in Vermont, but right now childcare programs say that they are at a breaking point. And we need to act quickly if we're going to prevent sweeping program closures across the state. As we approach the start of the 2022 legislative session, we must focus on urgent need for short-term emergency investments, while also staying on track toward a permanent solution to Vermont's childcare crisis. Vermont's childcare crisis impacts all of us. Our early educators and the workforce behind Vermont's workforce are providing essential care for our youngest and for chronically low wages, despite the career preparation and their job skills. Vermont employers are struggling to recruit or retain the employees that they need, and families cannot afford childcare in every region of the state. Vermont's childcare system is failing too many Vermonters. The need for action has never been more urgent than it is now. Early childhood educators say that they are at a breaking point. We need all hands on deck to identify and provide immediate supports childcare programs need in order to keep their doors open and in order to meet the urgent need of families. But we've never been closer to a permanent solution than we are right now. Together, we've made significant progress toward an accessible and affordable childcare system in Vermont, but we can't stray from the promises made in the Child Care Bill H171 in May of this past year. In addition to addressing the immediate early childhood education workforce crisis, we have to keep our eyes on the ultimate prize, a strong and sustainable childcare system that meets all of Vermont's children and families' needs, values early childhood educators, and functions like the vital economic infrastructure that it is. So I just wanted to take a moment to have our legislators introduce themselves. If you could just briefly take a moment to say who you are and what regions that you are representing, that would be excellent. Dan, can we start with you?
Hi, good evening. Dan Noyes, represent Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Belvedere, and serve on the Human Services Committee.
Thank you very much. Heidi?
Yeah, I'm Heidi Sherman. I represent the town of Stowe.
Thank you.
Thanks
Lucy?
for having me.
Hi, I'm Lucy Rogers. I represent Waterville and Cambridge. Good to see you all.
Okay. And I'm looking to see, am I missing? Oh, Avram. Hi, Avram.
Hi, it's Avram, but that's okay.
Avram, I'm sorry.
Um,
Thank you.
I'm Avram Pat. I'm one of the two representatives from the Lamoille, Washington district, which is Morristown, Elmore, and in Washington County, Woodbury and Worcester.
Thank you. Dave?
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. My name's Dave Iacovoni, and I'm from where Avram is, same district.
Thank you. Rich?
I'm Rich Westman. I represent the county in the Senate and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have I missed anyone that I maybe can't see on my screen?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Kate Donnelly. I represent Belvedere, Johnson, Hyde Park, and Wolcott alongside Dan Noyes.
Thank you very much, Kate. What a wonderful turnout of our legislators. Thank you all so much for your commitment and willingness to be here this evening. We really appreciate it. So I want to thank all of you for coming and let you know that we're going to hear from 4 speakers this evening. We're going to hear from a parent. We're going to hear from a business person.
Sonia's never been that quiet.
Looks like yeah, we've got a few tech issues, but just to finish up what she was saying, we'll start with a parent, with Julia Rogers, Chris Vinu, and then as our business representative, and then Kathy Cookson and Jessica Lamson are going to speak from the educator perspective. After they go, we'll turn it over to Dan Brown for a quick update on his end. So Julia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Noah, and thank you all for having me tonight. I'm Julia Rogers. I live in Stowe, and I'm a small business owner, which I'm kind of the sneaky small business owner. I'm a sole proprietor, so I'll be kind of speaking to that a little bit, but also as just a parent of daughters aged 5 and 7 right now. And I also serve on the board of Main Street Alliance of Vermont. So kind of wearing a couple hats today, but I'm really excited to share my childcare story with all of you, because I think that this is one of the issues, facing Vermont as far as making sure that our state is, full of stability and vitality for the future. And I think this is a big part of the economic puzzle. So by way of background, as one of the, I think it's about 60,000 sole proprietors in Vermont. I can tell you that, many of us are young parents, and we, on one side of the coin, love the flexibility and challenge of running our own sole proprietorship. But on the other side, childcare is a huge issue, especially in startup stage sole proprietorship. So for example, I've been in business for about 13 years, so I'm not in that startup phase anymore, but I have a very good friend who's just started her small business, and she is working late into the night after her kids are asleep because, she's trying to squeeze in those hours because she does not want to send her toddler to daycare, because it's just going to take too much of a cut of their bottom line in the family budget. So, I think that from that, very, very micro small business standpoint, access to childcare is, one more brick in the foundation of ensuring that Vermont is just, entrepreneurial, because I really think that that's the future of our state is entrepreneurship. So my personal childcare journey started before I even had kids. When I was pregnant, I talked to some fellow parents that were a little bit ahead of me, and they said, you better get on a wait list. And So before I even knew what my baby's name was going to be, baby Rogers was on the wait list at a well-respected childcare center in Stowe. And we were really lucky to end up securing a spot for her. And she started when she was about 3 months old. And so not only were we lucky enough to secure a spot at that daycare, which Sonia will know well because it was Apple Tree, but we were lucky enough to have an absolutely incredibly positive childcare experience and daycare experience. Both of my daughters started as infants and they went all the way through the full-time pre-K program. And, even on several occasions, they actually shared teachers. So we, really grew to appreciate and respect our early childhood educators as a part of our extended village that we're helping, give our kids a really, really strong start. Also due to the timing of the universal pre-K law that passed a few years ago, I was actually able to see the difference before and after the child care credit took effect. So I am, really lucky that we were able to enjoy some of that financial assistance to ease the financial strain of childcare. Because so basically, also to anyone on this call who voted in favor of that bill, thank you so much, because it really makes a huge difference in people's lives to have that childcare credit to put towards this resource. So our childcare costs peaked when our kids were about infant and 2 years old, and the collective cost of our childcare was about the same as, or just a little bit below in-state tuition at UVM. And I think that comparison of childcare to college is very useful when we have this conversation, because we've already decided as a society that we value higher education. There's governmental supports in place, there's financial resources in place, but it has to be the same for early childhood education. The science is there. We know how important the years of 0 to 5 are in young children in development. And we know that parents need the support so that they can provide for their families as well. So I think that I think that it's not only a financial reality that childcare costs a lot and puts this huge burden on families, but it's also a resource that our young children need to thrive. So I also wanted to kind of throw a flag up, because when I was thinking about my remarks, I found myself writing the words lucky and fortunate a lot in how I describe my story. And that's the bottom line, is that I'm very lucky to have secured a spot at a great daycare, lucky to have had really amazing young early childhood educators working with my kids, lucky to have had the resources to afford childcare at all. And I think that really speaks to the need of the moment. I consider myself one of the more fortunate people to go through this gauntlet of the 0 to 5 years and come out on the other side. But I think that we all know that social equity should not be about luck. It should be about everybody being able to access a resource. So in my opinion, for Vermont to thrive, all parents need access to affordable, high quality education for their young little ones. And on the flip side, we need to compensate early childhood educators in a way that, recognizes their substantial value to the community, and also that encourages workers to see that sector as an attractive career path. So it needs to come from both ends. And I challenge you all to enter this legislative session with your problem solving hats on, because this is a systemic issue. It's a meaty one, it's a big one, but it's really necessary for the future of Vermont. So that's what I had to say tonight, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Julia. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay. Next, we're going to hear from Chris Vigneault. Is that how you say your name? Vigneault? Am I saying that
Yeah,
properly?
actually, yeah, that was very well done.
From Round Hearth in Stowe. Thank you very much, Chris.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it's an honor to be able to speak to all of you. So I really appreciate you giving me the time and for trusting my opinion for everything that I have to say. So just a little bit of background, and actually similar to Julia, I am also a parent. My wife Whitney and I live here at the Round Hearth, and we have our son Merrick. He's 16 months today. Well, actually not today, but he is 16 months. And we have another child coming. So we are also due in March, which we're very excited about. And because of that, and also because of business, Daycare obviously is unbelievably, and I apologize, you could probably hear him. He's in the other corner of the room. He's enjoying his food. But daycare is extremely, extremely important to us. And so from a business standpoint, the Round Hearth, it has been, I'll just give you as brief as I possibly can, sort of lowdown of what we are, who we are, what we do. So my parents have owned the Round Hearth since 1988. We were a ski dorm for many, many years up until up until COVID, really. COVID hit and, you know, the world shut down and everything went haywire. And unfortunately, that was sort of the last nail in the coffin for us as a ski dorm. And so we made some, or my sister and my mom made some very serious emergency changes, you know, and with some of the government assistance available, my mom was actually able to sort of create a new path for us and create our current business and create the cafe in the marketplace. That being said, it's been a blast. It's been very successful. It's been a blast. And as Julia was talking about fledgling businesses, that essentially is what we are. We've had the business for, you know, the building and the property since '88, but we are brand new. We are brand new. We're still figuring out what we do. And right now, just to give you sort of an idea, our organizational structure consists of my mom, me, we have 4 full-timers currently, me, my mom, my sister, Allie, and my wife, Whitney. And actually, that's not true. We have 6 full-timers, the 4 of us in the family, and then 2 others as well that are outside of the family. But you can see how, you know, we've got a lot of family in the business itself. What we find is because of the fact that Whit is a part of the business, and because of the fact that we're so strapped for employees, when our daycare is to close, anytime the daycare closes, anytime there's an issue, or, you know, anytime Merrick has to get sent home, anything like that, it creates an outstanding ripple effect. It really is. It's kind of mind blowing, the ripple effect. You know, as a parent, it creates a ripple effect that, you know, it creates a ripple effect that we, you know, and it's just the way the system works, we are still on the hook for that day of daycare. We oftentimes, well, we will lose work because either myself or Whit will need to take the day off to be with Merrick. And then oftentimes we'll also have to get a doctor's note. We'll have to go to a doctor's appointment as well. And from a business standpoint, it's really hard because with the staff as constricted as we currently have, anytime one of us is unable to work, it creates a huge, huge, huge constriction in what we are able to do. And so there actually have been a number of times where we've had to shut down the business for a day or two because of because of issues that have been had with daycare, and whether it be, you know, sicknesses going around, or as you know, right now, generally that's the case. But there is that incredible ripple effect. And actually, to bring it beyond that, as part of our business, we're a cafe and we're a marketplace. And so we have close to 100 vendors now. We have folks that sell antiques. We have folks that sell their own art. So we have artisans, we have potters, we've got painters, we have, you know, basket makers. We have a number of different artisans that actually rely on us as our business to be open during our normal business hours so that they can get the potential sales that they need to be able to keep their stuff in our store, that they, you know, to be able to keep making what they make and pay rent and all those things. And so when something happens with daycare and we need to shut down the business, not only are we missing out on a huge chunk of money for the business itself as well, but all of those artisans, ironically, one of whom is one of our daycare providers, they lose out on a day or on potentially multiple days of outreach in the community with their goods. They lose out on potential sale opportunities, which, you know, like I said, the domino effect with us is very interesting, you know, and it's an incredibly, incredibly difficult situation. And, you know, how to possibly fix it, I have no idea, but I'm willing to bet that all of the incredible people here on the screen are probably going to be able to do something. And I'm looking forward to everything that you're able to come up with. You know, as Julia said, daycare is so essential. It's so essential as a parent. It's so essential as an employer. You know, it's hard to find staff right now. Obviously, daycare has trouble finding staff. We have trouble finding staff, and a good part of that is because of childcare, right? It is because of the childcare situation. You know, folks aren't able to get childcare. Folks aren't able to go to work. You know, they aren't able to have anybody to watch their children during the summer, when we are, as a town, the most busy and kids are out of school. It's an issue again. You know, kids are out of school, they have to go to daycare, and if the daycare closes down, you know, it becomes an issue. If people aren't able to find daycare for their children when they're out of school, you know, you lose potentially a huge chunk of your employees. So again, it was an honor to be able to chat with you all, to be able to speak with you, and thank you for everything that you're doing. I can't wait to see what you're all able to come up with, and thank you for asking me to be a part of this.
Thank you so much for your time tonight, Chris. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a good evening.
I would like to introduce Kathy Cookson. She runs the Morrisville After School program, as well as Clubhouse Kids in Morrisville. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks for having me. When I was first asked to do this talk, I reached out to many centers in Lamoille County, and together we created a list of things we wanted to address. So I have it written in front of me, and I'm just going to read it from my screen. Working in childcare is the most rewarding profession one can have. It's also the most underfunded profession there is. It's well known that to work in the childcare field, people need to want to make a difference, not make money. This is a hard pill to swallow and must be addressed and changed. Current funding models do not support the true cost of childcare. To offset this, programs must decide what can be funded and what cannot. Typically, things like health insurance, life insurance, and retirement are excluded from benefit packages for staff. Staff make just over minimum wage in many facilities. This is the only profession that requires higher education at an entry level, and the compensation is equal to or less than someone who works in an entry-level position with no additional training required before hire. Why is childcare so underfunded when we know the value of childcare? We know the first 5 years is when the brain is developing most. By age 5, 90% of the brain is formed. We also know childcare is quite literally the backbone of a working, thriving economy. We know parents cannot pay more for childcare. We know providers cannot survive on the current wages and lack of benefits. To keep programs viable, there must be increased funding. Funding that goes towards staff salaries to make them have livable wages and benefited positions. Since COVID, all of these problems have become dire in childcare. When COVID hit, half of my staff felt safe enough to stay on, and the other half were not comfortable staying in the childcare setting. Our program decided to stay open for essential workers. This was such a unique situation where families we never met were dropping their children off at the door to staff they had never met. We bonded with those children and families and gave them the best care possible. There was a true appreciation from the families to us and from us to the families who were also providing essential work. While that made our hearts very full, and that is what we chose to remember, it's also important for you to hear how COVID almost crippled childcare. Funds coming in was a huge problem. The state really did rally to support programs, and eventually everything worked itself out, but there were not immediate funds. Parents had stopped wanting to pay because they were home with their children. Families that were deemed essential felt they were providing a service to the state and they should not have to pay for childcare. Act 166, which is the publicly funded pre-K, was the only program that never faltered in payments. Hard does not even come close to describing how tense this was. We had to work with our banks to move our mortgage payments to the end of the term. We had to work with our creditors to say, when everything gets figured out on a state level, we can pay you. If programs had been financially secure before this pandemic, we would have weathered the storm much better. Instead, I know as a program administrator and many other directors in our county lost a lot of sleep and gained a few more white hairs. Once the money worked out, we thought things would be all right. In reality, we were just bracing for the next crisis. Staffing. Where did all the qualified early childhood educators go? I know from firsthand experience, many decided to leave childcare altogether. Many went into retail, hospitality, providing one-on-one care, and the public school system. In these positions, not only did their pay and benefits go up, their stress level went down. Working with children is hard work. They are sweet and adorable, but to provide high quality childcare, you are not babysitting. You are teaching empathy, sharing, caring, how to be a good friend. You're working on shapes and numbers, math, science, and literacy skills that will create a strong foundation. You are observing, assessing, and analyzing, creating data that will help inform you on what your group needs to work on and what they're already great at. Childcare is an investment in a child's life. This investment needs to be adequately funded. Currently, families pay based on ability. Parents who are deemed over income pay the entire tuition, and families who are low income get assistance from the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. Everyone, regardless of income, needs assistance paying for childcare. If the system was created that funds were given to programs to help stabilize childcare, pay qualified staff livable wages, insurance and retirement were attainable and affordable for programs, tuition from families could go down because those investments were already being funded from other sources than parents. We need to make working in childcare attractive again. I often hear, I want to stay in childcare, I really do, I just can't afford to. Recently, we posted a job for 3 classroom assistants. We had 23 people apply for the position. Of those people, 1 person was qualified with experience and some coursework. We want qualified people, but are not able to attract them to the field. There truly is a crisis in childcare. I'm asking you to think of childcare not as just a service provided so parents can work, but as an investment in the future and economy. We are stronger together, and together we can create strong, viable programs for children to thrive in, so parents can feel comfortable returning to the workforce because their child is in a high-quality center, gaining lifelong skills with qualified teachers. That's it.
Well done. Thank you so much, Kathy. Really appreciate your insight. Next, I'd like to introduce Jessica Lamberton from Orleans Southwest Supervisor Union.
Hey everyone. I have a lot of what Kathy said fits me. I started in a childcare center 21 years ago. While I was there, I went to college, earned my degree, and unfortunately did not make enough money and did not have any benefits, so I left the program. I went to Head Start, which was great, more money, more benefits, but then there was no retirement program. So I was like, well, my future, I need to think about my future. So I moved to the public school. So I'm sorry, Kathy, I'm one of those people, but I totally understand where these teachers and these assistants are coming from. There are the public school pays better, unfortunately, and there are more benefits. We have more people backing us up and able to provide that for us. But childcare programs need people too. So that's my personal experience as a teacher. I have not been on the other side. I've never done the financial parts or anything like that, but I am now the Act 166 coordinator at Orleans Southwest, and I see the lack of childcare in our area. We need more programs. We have in OSSU's boundaries, we have 3 programs that are UPK without the 2 public school preschools, and that does not serve enough students. We do not have enough places for our children, and especially the infants and toddlers. I think it was Julia in the beginning who said that when she was pregnant, she was told definitely go, put your name on the list. That is what I tell every single friend of mine who's like, oh, I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh, where are you sending your child? They're like 3 months pregnant, but I'm asking them, where are you sending your child when they, when you go back to work? So it's such a need, such a big need, especially like in our area, the Lamoille County or the Lamoille area just does not have enough places. So yeah, that's pretty much all. Everything I wanted to say has pretty much been said already. So, but I want to thank everybody who is backing the 171 and everybody who just supports early education because we need it so badly. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I really appreciate your perspective, especially your journey. It's helpful to understand. I just want to say that the childcare problem is a solvable problem, right? And I think we know some of the things we need to be doing in order to solve that problem. There are so many challenges out there, and not one clear solution, but the child care crisis isn't one. They do have a clear solution and a clear pathway. The path to success is clear, and all we have to do and all we need is basically the will and courage to do the hard work and make some smart investments now that are going to result in a brighter future for generations of Vermonters to come. I'd like to introduce the LGK field policy staff that is going to go over the 2022 legislative agenda. So I'd like to introduce Drake Turner.
Thank you, Sonia. Thanks, everyone. For those of you I haven't met before, my name is Drake Turner, and I am the Senior Policy Manager at Let's Grow Kids. And thank you all for having me tonight. So I want to be, hopefully fairly brief. Us policy folks can tend to go on and on, but I want to just chat a little bit about what we're thinking about for 2022. And before I do that, I do want to really say thank you again to the legislators who are on this call tonight for the work that you've done really since the pandemic began and even before then to support the childcare system in Vermont. I think we've heard from our speakers tonight that there is a lot that's really difficult in our childcare system right now, but we would not be where we are if it wasn't for the act of the legislature and of the administration that stabilized. So we feel incredibly grateful for your work and for all of your support of H171. Which we know will continue to have an impact on moving us to the future childcare system that we can envision for Vermont. So I just want to spend, and in the chat, I'm going to share a sort of a summary of what we're looking at, so folks can take a look at this at your leisure. We'll be sending it around to folks as well. But what we're really seeing right now is that the transformation of childcare in Vermont requires both a long-term solution to our childcare crisis and also some emergency investments right now to recruit and retain early childhood educators and to strengthen programs to prevent some of the emergency compensation and recruitment tools for early educators. And it looks like my internet connection's unstable, so I'm going to go off video. But that, as I was saying, that we really are seeking funding to support emergency compensation and recruitment tools for early childhood educators. And that specifically includes some additional funding for workforce stabilization for early childhood educators to provide retention and recruitment bonuses. It also includes supporting early childhood educators to access health insurance. We talked, I think it was Kathy who mentioned that benefits are really an issue in the field right now, and health insurance is something that a lot of early childhood educators either don't have access to at all or they're underinsured. We also are looking at expanding the student loan repayment program for early childhood educators that was included in H171 and some other innovative ideas to support this essential workforce. Our 2022 legislative agenda also includes funding the childcare financing study to move forward as passed in H171, the childcare bill. So we can keep moving toward a sustainable and dedicated revenue source for childcare transformation in the future. We're also looking to secure continued investments in the childcare financial assistance program to make childcare more affordable for families. And we're also really focused on ensuring the continued implementation of H171. We know a lot of components of that bill are still underway in the implementation process, so it's really important that we get that right. So what we're doing right now at Let's Grow Kids is we're working with legislative leaders, including many folks on this call tonight, and the administration to ensure that we keep this big picture work of H171 moving forward, while also mobilizing immediate support to stabilize our early childhood education workforce. So one way that folks on this Zoom tonight will be able to support this agenda is by providing comments to the governor's office as they prepare their budget proposal for next year, as well as signing on to our policy agenda. And so for folks here right now, stay tuned for an email in the coming days with more information, as well as a link for a really quick and easy way to ask the administration to focus on childcare as they build the state budget, which we know is super important. So that is what I have now. I know there's some time for questions later in this meeting, but I just really appreciate folks taking time on a Monday night, and I'll turn it back to Sonia to keep us going. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Drake. Will you be able to put a link in the chat or for the childcare transformation plan?
Yeah, it's Sonia. It should be there right now.
Okay.
And I think we'll send it with the follow-up materials as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to introduce Dan Brown from the Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance to give us an update.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Dan Brown. I am the Public Engagement Director with the Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance. Thanks to Let's Grow Kids and Building Bright Futures for helping put together this meeting and invite our legislative champions. What a great turnout. This partnership, collaboration, and conversations are how we create an early childhood education system that benefit all children and families here in Vermont. So the Alliance focuses a little more broadly on issues related to early care, education, health, safety, food security, housing, economic security, all issues that ensure that Vermont children and families benefit from a comprehensive, continuous, and integrated system of services. So we put together a legislative agenda every year from our different lead organizations, and I will include a link to that in the chat. We put on Early Childhood Day in the legislature, which is a virtual event every year in the spring, which is a fantastic opportunity to connect folks with their legislators, give them a chance to learn about the issues that the Alliance works on our legislative agenda. And this is part of the ongoing conversations and collaborations between folks like you and your legislators, because that is how we create a better system, by ensuring that we are all involved and working together. So I will pop some of these links in the chat. Feel free to sign up for our email list to stay up to date on all of the broad issues that we work on. And thanks so much to Noah for letting me just have that little chunk to do my pitch there.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. So as you can see, the solution to Vermont's child care crisis really begins with you. Together, we can create a child care system that centers equity, affordability, and quality so that families can find and afford childcare in their communities and meet their needs. Together, we can create a childcare system that values and compensates early childhood educators for the essential work that they are doing. And together, we can grow communities, businesses, and our economy by investing in our youngest Vermonters. Childcare is essential, and it's time to invest in what's essential. So you can also sign on to the childcare transformation plan that I was asking Drake about. So when you see that come up in the materials that you are sent in the follow-up, please take a moment to do that. For our legislators, all of whom actually supported the passing of H171. Thank you. We really want to take some time now to open it up, this section of this evening, to ask all of you legislators to let us know, one, how we can support you in being a child care champion this session. And two, is there anything that you've been seeing or hearing about the child care crisis in your region? So I would just like to, again, I'll start with Dan and give you just a couple minutes to have some time to make some comments.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to getting back to the legislature. I think you were talking about this Dan, correct? Yes. Okay. It's a couple Dans here. So, yeah. So, yeah. Just I don't have any specific questions or anything. I'm sure our committee will be taking up some issues around childcare. So. Yeah, no specific questions. Thank you for the work you all do. It's been very informative. So thanks.
Heidi?
So I asked this for 15 years of you all, and we haven't quite gotten to where I had hoped over the course of that time. Obviously, thank you for this, and obviously, I was pleased to be able to support the bill last year and how we're moving forward. But on the funding piece, I mean, we got all sorts of federal money thrown at us, so we don't have any problems. I mean, people will fight over it, but the underlying issue is funding, long-term funding, and sustainability of early childhood education. And we've never actually broken that, cracked that nut. And I've begged early childhood educators for, like I said, 15 years to consider a funding source that is within the K through 12 funding system. We spend $1.7 billion on K through 12. That is more than enough money we need for 75,000 students. And I would just beg again and plead that that is where there might be some ability for some sustainable funding if we can just address of comprehensive reform of our education funding system so that it is one that is comprehensive in terms of pre-K through 12 and frankly beyond. So I will ask again. I'm not going to ask for any answers right now, but I have begged the early childhood community to take that on. That also means taking on the K through 12 community. I understand that it's hard for us legislators as well, clearly, because we haven't, well, people have given up on that altogether. But I would just ask that you consider that as a more sustainable funding system for education in general, and that includes pre-K through 12 and then higher education opportunities for Vermonters. So I'm just going to leave you with that. And again, I've been saying that for the past 15 years and haven't had any luck, but I figured I'd give it a shot today as well. So.
Thank
Sonia,
you,
do you mind
Heidi.
if I jump in for just one moment? Thank you for sharing that, Representative Sherman, and thank you for joining us tonight. I think we're at Let's Grow Kids really committed to a system for birth to 5 as well. So I think pre-K is obviously a huge component of that, but there's also, like a larger universe of children that we're working on. And one thing that you all passed in H171 that we're really excited about is that financing study to really deeply look at, what this system might cost and the ways that it can be sustainably and equitably funded with a dedicated funding source moving forward. So,
and that's great. I would just say that a dedicated funding source out of the already dedicated funding source for education is where to go, I would argue.
Got it. Yeah, I think at this point, we're really
taxes
hopeful.
Vermonters.
Yeah.
The right way to go at this point. So
yeah, a lot more to come on that for sure. I think there are a lot of options that that study will explore, and there's a lot for you all to discuss in the legislature moving forward. So we're eager to continue that discussion. And just again, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Great. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you very much. Dave Iacovone, would you like to be next?
Thank you. You know, it's complex. Let me just take a drive down a different path for just a moment. I was speaking with a farm friend over the weekend who was sharing the crisis that his family was in because of no workers. I know a mom very, very well whose son's surgery was postponed at the medical center because they didn't have adequate staff to do the surgery to make it safe. So they had to push it out. I know my friends who run what are called adult daycare centers. 3 of them closed last year in the state out of 14, who are struggling mightily because their business occupancy is taking a while to come back. You look across the continuum, the systems are under siege. So it's very hard when you have so many different crises going on at the same time. It almost feels, who do you throw the lifeline to? And that may sound offensive to some who would say, well, of course it's our children and our working families, and all of us, as you indicated, voted for this last year. I can't speak for the others in the future, but I know I'll do everything I can to be supported. I know in the reality of things, when you get down to asking others to pay for your service, that's a hard ask, because I'm sure Heidi knows, been doing it for a long time. But where does Stowe cut its school budget to help pay for childcare? Where does the town of Johnson do that? Where does Morrisville do that? Where does Worcester do that? Becomes a very difficult question when you drill it down to the local level. So we have the enormous opportunity and benefit with one-time funds to try to build bridges. We put, I think, $47 million into childcare last year. Well spent. I hope that buys us some time. If the federal legislation passes, that will help limit any parents under a certain limit, any parent whose income is under a certain limit, to pay no more than 7% of their income. That's a real building block to help us. So it's going to take a number of different building blocks, but we've got to be committed to do this. There's no question about it. Thank you.
Dave. Thank you, Dave. I just wanted to say, if folks had questions, if you wanted to throw them in the chat, that'd be great. And then we can try to get to as many of those as we can get to. Kate Donnelly, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi. Thanks for organizing this. I just want to express such gratitude to Let's Grow Kids. I sort of like sit back in awe at what you all have accomplished in the time that you've been alive in the world of advocacy. And I was talking to Drake the other day, and maybe this is a question for me, but I feel like in passing in a phone conversation, she mentioned something about like Let's Grow Kids like sunsetting. Did I make that up? And I like had a momentary panic attack on the telephone. So you guys have done a lot in a brief amount of time, and as a parent of young kids, I really appreciate everything that you've done. I absolutely supported 171, and I hear the discussions of funding streams, and I get it, and I feel like we have to figure it out. Like that's sort of where I'm coming from. And obviously I'm deep in it right now, so this is a high priority for me. I think in the span of the pandemic, we lost childcare 3 times. While also trying to manage our jobs. I operate a private practice. I am also a sole proprietor. I have a couple businesses I run, and it nearly made our lives wholly unsustainable. And one of the things that came up for our family, and I just want to preface what I say by like underscoring that everyone is doing the absolute best that they can at any given time. And certainly during the pandemic, people were under just such immense amounts of stress. But when we had lost childcare for the second time, a friend of ours referred us to a childcare provider in Morrisville who's well known, extremely good at what she does. Just one of those people who's like born to do this work. And at the time, she was only working with 2 families because she hadn't been certified with the state yet, but she'd been working to be for, I think, a couple years at that point. And I don't know all the intricacies of it, but what I know is that my wife and I are both social workers, and my wife worked for the state. And being a social worker and being one who can navigate bureaucracies, got on the phone with the state, and essentially within 2 weeks was able to accomplish what hadn't been done in years, which was get this provider certified, which allowed her to open up. And now she has, I think, 5 families that she's working with. And similar to what some other folks have said on this call, it shouldn't take a highly effective advocate in order to make that happen, in my mind. If there are others in our county who are seeking childcare, then they might not have the skill set to navigate the system in the way that my wife did, and certainly wouldn't have had the outcome that we did. And so, in addition to thinking about the system as it, as we want it to be, I guess I also just continue to have questions about, like, how is it functioning now? What is happening on a state level in terms of folks who are waiting to get certified? We have a crisis on our hands in terms of childcare, and you have highly qualified folks, and maybe it was an anomaly, but you have a highly qualified person in our county and she's just sitting on a wait list. So I don't know if anyone can speak to that now. I'm not necessarily looking for anyone to, but I just think it feels important to me that as we, I think sometimes we can build and build and build on things that maybe already aren't working very well. And so how do we also make sure that we are efficient with the system that we have currently? And I'll pause there. Thanks for coordinating this.
Thank you very much, Kate. Lucy Rogers, would you like to go next?
Sure, thanks. I think piggybacking off of Kate is great because for me too, the main thing I'm thinking about is just how do we get more childcare slots available? Like, everybody I know in my community is absolutely desperate. And I had to leave for part of the meeting and turn my video off because a friend with 2 young children was calling me in a complete panic because tomorrow their daycare is closing early and what are they going to do? So I will be watching those kids tomorrow afternoon, but it just kind of goes to show. So yes, thank you. And I appreciated the opportunity to bring everybody together and also just to listen and hear what you all had to share. So thanks.
Thank you, Lucy. And Rich, would you like to go next?
I think I'm last.
Oh no, we have one more person. Avram's going to go afterwards. I'm just going in order on my screen.
I'll piggyback offering some of what I've heard before. First, we have less than half of the kids that are born have a placement. So when you have kids that are registered childcare and we have less than half of the kids have a placement, we're desperate for placements. To use your own numbers from Let's Grow Kids, 71% of your center-based programs report experiencing staffing shortages. And what I see in most of, and I haven't been through in detail everything that's been put forward, but I've been through a fair amount of it. There's a heavy concentration in your stuff about supporting existing programs and stabilizing the workforce now. And I agree with that. But there has to be a push to get more people into the business and more people working in the business. You can't have placements for less than half the kids. And those people that are doing the work now, 71% of the center-based programs having shortages. So there has to be a bigger push by Let's Grow Kids and the people in the business to pay attention to how we get more people interested in doing this work. And I will say a backdrop to that is exactly why we need to do a funding study and feeds into what Heidi mentioned earlier. We need stable funding across the board to do that.
Thank you, Rich. Would you like to go next?
Yeah, okay. In my time in the legislature, and also in the work in my jobs, that various jobs I had, this has not been an issue I have personally worked on, although I follow it very, very carefully in the legislature because I care very, very deeply about it. And that's in part because of my wife, who passed away early this year, but who I know a number of people at this meeting knew, who worked in early childhood and childcare in state government at the Family Center of Washington County, ran a cooperative childcare center in Barry, and probably had the biggest impact on this issue in her 10 years working as the Human Services Coordinator for Senator Jeffords, because I've learned since her passing from a number of people around the state what a fierce advocate she was in convincing the rest of the staff and the senator about doing something or trying to do something about this on the federal level. I am also very, very aware of the interconnection between the problems in funding and staffing and pay levels for childcare and the same problems that are happening throughout our economy, both in Vermont and throughout the country right now. So when there are staffing shortages that cause supply chain problems or closings, temporary closings up and down of other kinds of businesses, it's very often, in my own experience, and I know people in this situation who can't come to work or can't come to work today and tomorrow because of either the overall lack of childcare or a temporary closing of availability of childcare for their own children. So people are making decisions about their own employment in other sectors, and in some cases stepping back, very much tied with what's going on with childcare. So I'm not at the table, as I said at the beginning, in terms of exactly where and how do we fund this. I listen very carefully to what those who are at the table are talking about, and people should just know that this is very, very important to me. And when proposals for funding and other proposals that will stabilize and strengthen childcare in Vermont come to the table, I'm for them. I'm following it very carefully.
Thank you, Avram. I wanted to take the opportunity to open this if folks have questions that, you know, either for the legislators or things that they wanted to discuss. We do have a few minutes that we could do that if folks have questions. I will say, as a childcare, business owner, that I really appreciate what I hear all of our legislators saying. And it all makes sense to me. I've been in this field for about 22 years. I was in public education for 14 before that. And I think what we are looking toward and what the Alliance and the Let's Grow Kids has been proposing and what we've been advocating for ticks all of the boxes of what all of you just said needs to happen, right? It's the creation of a system. It's the creation of funding. It means looking at what we currently have for funding and utilizing that more efficiently. And it potentially means drawing from other funding sources, tax-based or private and philanthropic funding. I agree we need to build and systems that allow folks a pathway into early childhood to increase those professionals in the field. And we are already starting to tap into some of those sources using Department of Labor funding, who are starting to coordinate and work with us around the creation of, pre-apprenticeship programs and other programs that draw in folks earlier in their high school, those thinking about going on to college. That's why there are pieces in all of the H-171 around things such as loan repayment. That's huge if you want to draw people in, if they're going to go the traditional route of high school into college and then into the workforce. Until we deal with the issue of compensation, this is one of those bridge pieces, right? If you can do loan repayment, it allows that bridge so that people feel like they can come in and they can work and they aren't trying to pay massive loan debt and work in a field that doesn't pay well at this point. So I do feel like the tools and the pieces are there, and I just know it's going to take a lot of work. And it's not going to happen overnight, but I also really do trust and know that there are a lot of very smart, intelligent people, not only in the field, but in the legislature, in business, in our communities that can really make this happen. So that's my little soapbox. I apologize, but I've been doing this a long time, and this is the first time I've actually been really excited about where I see things heading. I just see a lot of promise, and I have seen a ton of momentum. So my dream is that this continues, because I really feel like we're going to get there. So would anybody else like to say anything before we sort of wrap things up? So now I come sort of to the take action portion, a little brief statement here, but basically we are Vermont's early childhood, childcare campaign, right? And all of the individuals and organizations that are present tonight are part of the 30,000 Vermonters that are actively calling for some change. And we need to actively ask people to join all of us. So it's like ask a friend, right? We all ask people to join us we need to let them know that joining Vermont's Child Care Campaign, that means they're standing up for parents, grandparents, early childhood educators, business leaders, employees, lawmakers, philanthropists, community organizations that are taking action on behalf of our children and on behalf of our shared future. At this point, all the participants in this event hopefully should have signed on in support, or I'm just going to remind you, you can do that as soon as we're done tonight. And now is the time, like I said, to ask your friends, 10 to 20 folks, talk to them in your circles, in your networking about this. You can email them the link that you're going to have. You can email them some of the links you've been given tonight or what will come in your follow-up materials. Everyone at this event is going to receive a packet in the mail with a t-shirt and paper copies of the legislative agenda. So you can also share all of that with your families and friends over the holidays. Please put your t-shirt size in the chat bar so we know what size of t-shirt to send you. We want to show our collective strength by the first week of the legislative session. So we hope to get a large number of digital signatures by the 3rd of January. And please mail the paper signatures that you get back to the Let's Grow Kids by the end of the first week of January. And if you have any other sort of creative ideas about how we might invite new people to this campaign and ask them to sign on, you could throw that into the chat as well. That would be much appreciated. And then your regional field directors and managers will be in touch with you all. So I just want to thank you all very much for being a part of tonight's event. And I want to apologize for my camera issue, which I'm going to have to track down our wonderful parent that does the IT at Apple Tree tomorrow to find out what's wrong with my camera. But I appreciate your continued participation in these events, in meetings that we have. I appreciate your participation in this childcare campaign. And I want to thank all of our legislators for joining us tonight in your continued commitment to children and families and early educators in our community. We are truly blessed here in Vermont. We look forward to working together with all of you to pass legislation that will make immediate investments to stabilize the current childcare workforce and long-term sustainable solutions to the childcare crisis. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you all.
Thank you all for joining. Have a great night.
Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
Great
holidays.
night, everyone.
Thanks. Good night.